So I'm going to finish the water today. I've really done nothing thus far of importance. It's just to get it blocked in and get the color on there, just so I have an idea of, you know, what I'm working with, what it's going to be. But I'm going to paint over the whole thing, and I'm working in oil paints right now. So oil painting, how I'm going to paint this beautiful water reflection, I think it's going to be, so I'm just really excited about it. Just the colors and the way the whole scene is. It's just, I'm excited. Let's paint some water. All right. Water. What colors do we need? That's first things first. Well, we're going to need some dark green, but actually, like, not literally green. It's going to be more yellow mixed with black, mixed with a little bit of white and a little bit of quinacridone. That's too dark. So, actually though, I'll probably use some of this. So I'll take some of that color and kind of keep it. Take the rest of my yellow, a little bit of quinacridone, a little more white. That's still going to be too dark. So, we need some more yellow. More yellow. And more quinacridone. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. So, that's kind of our green color. Another thing I'm going to need is a blue color. So, this will be kind of the color of the mountains reflecting maybe a little bit of the sky. So, ultramarine blue. Probably some manganese blue. And I think some quinacridone magenta, but probably not that much. I'll probably take a little bit of that out. And then we're going to need to dull that down. So, and probably quite a bit. So I'm actually just going to take some of that. Probably more white. I'll probably end up using it anyway, so more white. Probably a little more blue. And then I'm going to need some black with that. And of course, all the colors and materials are always in the description. I'm using this chromatic black, which is just complementary colors mixed together, but very, very dark. Okay, I'm trying to decide if that's blue enough. I could probably use a little more blue. That's pretty close. Perhaps a little magenta with that. All right, blue, green, black. I think we got what we need. Okay, now the first brush I'll probably be using is going to be this flat brush. And then I'll probably switch to something like this filbert brush. Yeah, let's just go with a flat brush for right now. And I want some mineral spirits, a little bit on this brush. So what I'm actually going to do is take my palette knife so I can pick some up with the brush, just a small amount. I'm going to take some black with a little magenta and just the tiniest of white, along with some medium. And I'm going to start out by just coating on or blocking in some of these colors that I'm looking for. I'm going to end up blending in a lot of this color, like wet in wet, I suppose. And so I want to have kind of those darker tones in place before I get to that. So I'm going to think of the darkest tone, and in this case, for this dark area, it's going to be this really dark color, because of course it's reflecting what's above it, which is that those dark couple of trees. And I'm painting this on fairly thin. Don't need a lot right now. And I should also say that I'm not really... This needs to be oiled out for one, but also I'm not really concerned with the shore yet. I'd like to get the water done before I kind of tie the two together. So a lot of this is unfinished, kind of that transition between the water and the land. And so I'm just leaving that because I never know what really is going to happen with the water. I'd rather do the water, at least get it close to being done, and then, oil out the rest and probably wrap everything up at a later time. So that's kind of what's on my mind for that. But I'm just going to look for these darker tones, and I'm loosely following reference at this point. couldn't, you know, the creek where I was at didn't really have a lot of water, but it had a hint of it, and it kind of inspired me to do this. So I don't really have much of a reference to go off of for this kind of thing. I'm just kind of just going with it. So I'm just thinking of areas. Let's see. Add some over here. At this point, I'm just playing with it. Next thing I'm going to do is kind of step it up, go up to the next color, which is going to be some green. We're going to reflect some of these pine trees. So I'm going to wash my brush in mineral spirits over here. Kind of dab that dry. Pick up that green color that I'm looking for. So buttery. Get my medium in there. Mix that around. All right, now I'm kind of looking where those trees are. The brightest point of those trees is probably right here, so I'm just going to dangle my brush. Go right underneath that, and it's going to be somewhere right in here. Yeah, that color's looking spot on. So, not worried about detail in this reflection yet. This is just to get those colors where I want them to be. A little bit more over in here. Of course, we got those distant trees. Kind of dangle that brush. I can see that's going to be somewhere right in here. Add a little bit kind of in the middle. Now it's starting to blend with the black a bit, and that's okay. Eventually we're going to want to blend that together anyhow. Add a couple colors, a couple green splashes over here. All right. So that's looking good. Now, you know what I'm going to do? Probably don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to tell you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go overboard with the green. So I'm going to start to take white away. And instead of trying to draw around or paint around the white, I'm going to fill it in, and then I can easily just kind of coat that white over the top. And that just makes it, so it's always easy for water, and this is a good tip for reflections, stuff that I've kind of taught myself, is to paint the darks first. And this of course goes with a lot of aspects in painting, but paint those darks first and go overboard with them. So the darker color in this case between the white and the green is, of course, the green. Bring that green way further in than where you'd want it to be. And then take the white over the top and kind of add those white reflections back into it. It's going to make it a ton easier rather than to like try to paint around those white reflections. Just fill it in. If you have to let it dry and paint dry over wet, like, you know, that's fine. Just fill it in with the darker color. Same thing I did with the black. Just fill that sucker in. Okay. I'm going to blend this together a little bit. All right, so I'm thinking to myself, how far? Just go in. I'm going to go in even further with this green color. Why not? I think I might want to tone back some of that green. So I'm going to take some of that blue, that light blue, mix in with some of that green. That's just going to be a bit less vibrant. I'm just going to mix some gray. You know what? Yeah. So we're going to just take some gray. That's going to be less vibrant. And I'm going to add that in just kind of right in the... So this is the time to get the color right. The details are those individual reflections, the white reflections, the blue reflections that I'm going to add. So just make sure that the tone, everything is kind of, you know, value-wise, saturation-wise, you know, just kind of get it all how you'd like. And I'm even going to step back from this and take a look. Yeah, and it looks good, but I'm even going to, so I've got some of this black over here, and I'm going to mix kind of some gray tone and add that in a little bit further up top here. Because as we get closer to this area up here, it's actually going to be reflecting these logs, not really way back here. So I'm going to try to mix some of those darker colors. That log color, just more of a gray. Just like that. Leave a little bit of green down here. Now, same thing. My one camera might not be pointed over this far, but same thing over here. I'm just going overboard. I'm going to go overboard with this darker color, and I'm going to go right into this, the reflection of the snow. Go in further than I want to go. So adding those darker colors heavily. Before I get to detail, I want all of this to be nice and smooth, buttery, blocked in. Okay. That looks good. I'm just going to call that good. This can get kind of tricky because we've got a lot of blue right there. And how to go about it can be a challenge. It's easy to say go dark to light, but I think it's easier to just get some blue blocked in just like we did with the green. Get all that white covered up. I'm just going to block all of that in. Okay, so I had some interruption there, but we're going to pick right back up where we left off, hopefully. But we should be able to paint wet in wet still. So I think what I left off doing was I was just about to begin some dark colors down in the blue. So what I'm going to do is just take some of this lighter blue. I'm going to richen that up a bit with some ultramarine blue, and then I'm going to add some black. So you want to color right around there, I suspect. And what I'm going to do to this solid blue area here is I'm going to start to look, now this is kind of back to working dark from light, so the same way that we work dark to light from here down into the blue, I'm going to kind of work from dark to light in the details as well, if that makes sense. So I'm basically going to start to look for the shadows and highlights within this water. I'm going to look for the shadows first, and then I will eventually add the highlights. And I'll kind of just show you an example here how I'm going to put this together. Now, the cool thing about water is there's really no wrong way to go about this. I say that a lot, but I really mean it with water. I think a lot of people get tripped up easily with water because of how complex the reflections are. But although it does take a little practice to kind of get it down, once you can understand how to put it together, I think at least understand the process by going dark to light, adding these types of shadows first, then kind of the highlights in between. I think, it really is just up to you how you want it to look. Water changes by the second. I probably said that exact same thing in the last water video because it's so important for me to just understand that this is really just anything goes. However I lay this down, it's going to look good. So I don't think too hard on it. And I just kind of remind myself that this water changes constantly. So just laying down some dark colors here, like you can see. Now this is where it kind of gets a little tricky. I'm going to add kind of some wild looking textures here. Gonna roll the paintbrush up. It may not look like a whole lot right now, but when you start adding the highlights over the top, and I'll show you what I mean. When I start taking that white, so just some medium and white, you'll see we're going to get, and I am careful about how I do this, but with not much effort, I'm going to get some very realistic looking pattern going on here. Look at that. Kind of step back and look at this. Yeah, it's looking good. I like it. So I'll bring this white all the way up into the green as well. But one thing I should remind you all on is if you're going to try to do something like this, also understand that you can change this at any point. So as I continue to add some of this reflection, I will not hesitate to adjust it, to get rid of some white, to add some green back in. All of this can be changed, and it should be changed, because the whole point of what I'm working on now is, well, the thing I'm trying to do is get this done in a reasonable amount of time. You can work water almost as much as you want. How many hours you want to put into it? Sure, you can get some very nice effects the more work you put into it, but I want to get this painting done as quick as I can. And so I'm just looking for the overall feel of this to look good. It doesn't have to be perfect, but when you stand back, it should have that feel, that effect of realistic water. And so I'm not going to get caught up on small details. I'm going to make changes if I have to. just going to kind of go with the flow. No pun intended. So I'm going to keep going back to adding some more dark blues, adding some more white, probably mixing in some green and that mid-range blue, kind of back and forth through all this, and just sort of piece this together little by little. And one thing I should say before I get too far is I don't want to take the white too far up into here yet. I do want to do some fine tuning in some of this area through here. Just as I'm doing some fine tuning with this different shade of blue, I also want to add some different shades of green and some different shades of black. But the process right here is going to be the same throughout this entire area of the water. So I'm going to keep plugging away, and I think you'll start to see things come together or start to make sense.